The January transfer window gives teams the opportunity to freshen up their squad to help them push for the title or to pull clear of the relegation zone. Both fans and pundits are desperate for their team to spend some money at this time of year.
So we certainly do need to spend, we certainly do need to get it right.
They need more depth. If they want to win the Prem, they need Mudryk. Get it done.
Don't get me started on the midfield. Midfield, I think defensively, I'm still happy with the goalkeeper. A couple of players up front. Huge.
So, with teams prepared to splash the cash in January, today's big question that we're asking is, how important is the January transfer window? But before we get into it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want to hear more of football's big questions, and make sure you stick around to the end of the video as we'll be discussing the best and worst January transfers ever. January is notoriously difficult to get deals done. On average in the Premier League, only 17% of transfer spend happens in January, with 83% being spent over the summer. For this reason, it's often described as the window of panic.
Oh my God! Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
What's the procedure, everyone? What's the procedure?
Stay calm! Wait. Everybody calm down!
Prices are massively inflated, which can lead to some astronomical fees for players. Who can forget the £50 million that Chelsea splashed on Fernando Torres in 2011? Or the £142 million Liverpool raked in from selling Coutinho to Barcelona in 2018. Looking back over recent history in the Premier League, big mid-season buys have a mixed record. Only 5 of the 14 most expensive January signings in the last decade saw their new clubs win more points per game that season after the transfer window closed. This was even the case for the god of defence, Virgil van Dijk at Liverpool.
I go further. I think he's the best centre-half of all time, yeah.
But sometimes clubs can get it right. Newcastle in the 21-22 season is a great example. In January, they were only off the bottom of the Premier League due to goal difference. The signing of Bruno Guimaraes for £40 million, along with 4 other players, galvanised them, and by the end of the season, they were in 11th place and equalling the form of the top 6 clubs. Interestingly, it also seems important to sign more rather than less players in January. In the last decade, Premier League clubs who signed more players during the transfer window saw a better improvement in their points per game that season. Only 43% of clubs see an improvement in points per game when they don't sign anyone. The percentage increases as more players are signed, with 75% of clubs seeing an improvement in points per game when they sign over 5 players in January. Clearly, quantity over quality is the way to go. Again, Newcastle are a good example of this in 21-22 season. By signing 5 players, they completely revamped their starting 11 and strengthened their squad, leading to a massive improvement in performance. But does bringing all these players in make a difference to the table at the end of the season? Well, not massively. If you're top of the league before the January transfer window starts, then you should be getting excited. Since the 2010-11 season, the team that has been top of the Premier League at Christmas has gone on to win the league 9 times. That's 75% of the time. The only team in that period to not win the league after being top is Liverpool on 3 separate occasions.
100% sure that feels unfair, that feels like what's going on here.
Which is quite ironic given some of Liverpool's good work in the January transfer window. And if you're bottom of the league before the January transfer window, it might be worth signing some players to help you in the Championship, because your team is only heading in one direction. The team bottom at Christmas has been relegated 10 out of 12 times. That's 83% of the time. Although one of the teams that didn't get relegated was Leicester City in 2015. And we all know how that one turned out. A good transfer window could help a team escape the bottom three though. Typically, at least one team in the bottom three survives. There have been 10 instances since 2010-11 where one or more of the bottom three teams has survived. That's 83% of the time. So there's a chance that spending in January can make a difference for the other two teams in the bottom three. So, what are the examples of teams getting it right in the January transfer window? Liverpool have had the magic touch on a couple of occasions. First of all, the animal that is Luis Suarez.
Look at that. Something went on. And Suarez does. He does.
He signed from Ajax for £22.8 million in January 2011. He became a legend on Merseyside and was arguably one of the Premier League's greatest strikers. He made 120 goal contributions in 110 appearances. Not only that, but in 2014, despite missing the first 5 games of the season through suspension, he won the Golden Boot, scoring 31 goals and almost led Liverpool to their first league title since 1990. Which is where this man comes in, Virgil van Dijk. He joined from Southampton for £75 million in 2018. An absolute Rolls Royce of a defender. He is arguably Jurgen Klopp's most important signing, using the Coutinho money smartly to break the world record transfer fee for a defender. He's gone on to win the League Cup, the FA Cup, the Champions League, and the elusive Premier League with Liverpool. An absolute game-changing signing. Manchester United can boast an impressive centre-back signing in January too. Nemanja Vidic joined them in 2006 for £7 million from Spartak Moscow and spent over 8 years with the club. Vidic was an absolute beast. He made the PFA Team of the Year 4 times in 8 seasons, the FIFA Pro World 11 twice, and won 15 trophies, including 5 Premier League titles with 2 as captain, and the Champions League as well. Not a bad honours list. But in terms of an immediate positive impact on results, it's hard to argue that any individual player has had more influence than when Manchester United signed Bruno Fernandes from Sporting Lisbon in 2020. That year, he went on to win the Premier League Player of the Month 4 times out of the 8 it was available. He also had 40 goal contributions in his first 42 appearances and easily guided the club from outside the top 4 to finish 3rd that season. And if you're looking for a success story at the bottom end of the table, then look no further than this. Arise, Sir Roberthuth. He signed for Leicester City from Stoke, initially on loan in January 2015. He was crucial in Leicester's great escape from relegation. The centre-back played in the Foxes' incredible run of 7 wins and a draw from their last 9 games. And the sole defeat in that run to Chelsea only came when Huth was forced off through injury. Not only that, but he then played a starring role in Leicester's miraculous Premier League title win the following season, not only forging an imposing partnership with Wes Morgan, but also famously scoring the winning goal at White Hart Lane and a brace at the Etihad Stadium. Is he the best January signing ever?
If you don't know the answer to that question, then I think you are an ostrich.
Okay, Nigel, let's just say he is. So if there's some of the hits in the January transfer window, what are the misses? Manchester United have been burnt with a number of transfers in recent years, and this one in particular was a massive flop. Alexissanchez arrived from Arsenal in 2017 as part of a swap deal with Henrik Mkhitaryan. In a moment of genius from Ed Woodward, United agreed to pay Sanchez the small fortune of £560,000 per week. On the face of it, it did look like a good deal. Sanchez had been a star for Arsenal. But he got space jammed.
Come on, we're okay. We're okay. You're all right. Come on, let's go.
He only scored 4 times in 45 appearances. They finally shipped him off to Inter Milan on loan before Manchester United agreed to terminate his contract by paying Sanchez off even more money. Sometimes, you just can't work out what clubs were thinking when they bought a player. This transfer in particular was one of them. In 2018, Southampton agreed to sign Guido Carrillo from Monaco for £19.2 million. He was Monaco's 4th choice striker, which seems like a bit of a red flag to me, and his performances reflected it. 10 appearances, 0 goals. After the manager who signed him got the sack, his replacement, Mark Hughes, realised he was useless, and he never played for Southampton again. Having signed on January the 27th, he played his last game for Southampton on March the 31st. He spent the next 2 seasons on loan before leaving on a free in 2020. Simply awful. In 2008, Middlesbrough had been stagnating in mid-table for a few seasons. They needed a spark to reignite their team and fan base. Step up Afonsoalves. Signed from Heerenveen for £12.7 million, he came with an amazing record, having scored a ridiculous 48 goals in his last 48 appearances. Although that was in the Dutch league. Unfortunately, the step up to the Premier League was about 10 steps too far for him. He managed 10 goals in 42 appearances, although 3 of those came in the bizarre 8-1 demolition of Manchester City in Sven-Göran Eriksson's last game. He spent 18 months with Middlesbrough, suffering relegation from the Premier League before leaving for the Middle East and a bucket load of cash from Al Sadd. And finally, probably the 2 most infamous January signings of them all. Fernando Torres from Liverpool to Chelsea for £50 million in 2011, and then Andy Carroll from Newcastle to Liverpool for £35 million, using the money from the Torres transfer. Torres was a Liverpool legend. He'd scored 33 goals in his debut season for them. He became the fastest Liverpool player to reach 50 league goals and almost helped them to a title in 2008-2009. But his fitness and performances were on the slide. So when Chelsea came in with a £50 million bid, a British record transfer fee at that time, Liverpool snapped their hands off. Chelsea had been duped. It took Torres 903 minutes to score his first and only goal for the club that season. And although he scored that famous goal at the Nou Camp,
It's Torres to give Chelsea a place in the Champions League final. The headline has been written.
he only managed 20 league goals in 110 appearances. An undoubted failure. And worst of all, Liverpool used some of the money to sign Luis Suarez. But then again, they also used the rest of the money to sign Andy Carroll from Newcastle. We can file this one under knee-jerk reaction. At only 22 years old, with 1 full season in the Championship, and only regularly starting in the Premier League for half of the 2010-11 season, Liverpool decided his 11 Premier League goals that season made him worth £35 million. He was an abject failure. He only scored a further 11 goals for Liverpool over 18 months. With recurring injury problems, it led to him being loaned out to West Ham, who would then go on to sign him permanently. One poll had this one down as the worst January transfer ever, and it's hard to argue given the huge fee, the lack of evidence for buying him in the first place, and the fact he didn't even fit into Liverpool's playing style. Just a complete waste of money.
What I call them? Fun coupons. See that? A fun coupon.
So, there you have it. The January transfer window, it's a lottery. It is possible to find some good players, but even they probably won't have much of an impact on your team's performance in this season anyway. And clearly, given all the rubbish transfers we've covered in this video, buying an expensive striker in January should be a big watch out. But what do you think? Does the January transfer window work? And who do you think are the best and worst January transfer signings ever? Let us know in the comments, and make sure you subscribe to the channel to find out the answers to more of football's big questions.